Hey guys and gals, welcome to another in my series of videos exploring Bonzo's drumming on all of the studio releases. Today we're going to look at Houses of the Holy. Houses of the Holy was mainly recorded in April and May of 1972. They did the majority of the recording at Stargroves, which was Mick Jagger's country home, using the Stones mobile truck recording studio. They also did sessions at Olympic Studios, and I think the engineer was different for the stuff at Olympic. I can't pronounce his name properly, but it's George, I think it's Chikantz or Chikiantz. Eddie Kramer was the engineer for the stuff at Stargroves, and there were some sessions done earlier in December of '71. That's when they recorded No Quarter. I'm not sure what other songs were recorded at that time, but that was recorded with Andy Johns at Island Studios, so kind of similar to the sessions for the fourth album, which Andy Johns engineered and which a lot of it was done at Island. But the majority of this album was done in April and May. Zeppelin had just finished up a tour of Australia in February, where they had previewed some of this material. You can hear snippets of The Rover and of The Song Remains the Same in some of the extended jams from some of the bootlegs of those shows. But they had already been playing songs from the album in summer of '72 when they were touring the US after they had finished most of the recording. I think they did some recording, possibly some overdubs at Electric Lady Studios, and Eddie Kramer was on hand for that, but there's no evidence of what they recorded there that I could find. I just recall hearing that they recorded a bunch of rock and roll covers, and that's quite interesting. I don't think there's any notes about that anywhere in Jimmy's anthology or in any of the books, other than they allegedly were recording a bunch of Elvis tunes, and it would be really interesting to hear that stuff if the tapes exist, if they'll someday come to light. But I'm not really sure what they did at Electric Lady. They may have done overdubs for things like No Quarter and just some of the songs that had a little bit more overdubbing, maybe even The Song Remains the Same. But by and large, The Song Remains the Same and the Rain Song were worked out pretty well in advance of going in the studio. Jimmy had a studio at home at the time, and so did John Paul Jones, and they worked out a lot of the parts and were fairly well prepared when they went into Stargroves and into Olympic to do the recording sessions. A lot of these songs were played soon after they were recorded in the summer of '72 while Zepp was on their US tour. For example, they played The Ocean and Dancing Days on a lot of their set lists for the 1972 tour. But the album would be delayed in its release until March of '73, mainly because of issues with the cover art. As far as Bonzo's drumming goes, there are so many great grooves, unique, distinctive grooves on this record. For example, the crunge, which is so inventive. It's sort of like a upside down, twisted James Brown funk beat. And then you've got The Ocean, which has those little odd bars interspersed here and there, and the groove that he came up with for that is just incredible. The Song Remains the Same has such a great groove. I mean, the whole album is like, I think it really showcases Bonzo's artistry as such a great contributor to the overall musicality, to the music, the way he complemented the music, the parts, the riffs, not just simply laying down drum beats. Not that he ever did that, but on some of the earlier albums, some of the beats are just, more quintessentially straight ahead rock or blues rock type grooves. But on this album, there's a lot of really unique drumming. He plays brushes on the Rain Song. No Quarter features a beat that I want to go into in a little detail because it's such an interesting way to interpret that song, and the beat that he came up with is so cool, the way it's subdivided and all the ghosting and all the character that he brought to the beats. And there's also something that I don't know if I've talked about it enough, but there's a real emotional content to Bonzo's drumming, and that's obvious, I guess. I put a lot of feeling into his drumming, but there's so much of an emotional contribution then to the songs. The songs, I think, so much of the emotional quality, whether it's intensity or aggression or sensitivity or that swinging kind of swagger, that so much of that comes from Bonzo. I think without him it would have been a very, very different character to a lot of these songs. So his contribution just cannot be overstated. It's just incredible drumming, and Houses of the Holy is one of my favorites in terms of his performances. So let's get into the album, starting with The Song Remains the Same. Okay, let's put my in-ears in for a little hearing protection, which is important. The album begins with The Song Remains the Same, of course. And this song is very interesting because it started out as an introduction, basically, to the Rain song. And it was meant to be an instrumental. Jimmy had the idea to do a sort of instrumental prelude to the Rain song, and was working on it at his studio, his home studio, and brought it in to Stargroves to begin recording it. And initially the song was called, I think it was referred to as the Overture, and then later on it was called the Campaign, until Robert, put these lyrics to it. And the philosophy behind it is that no matter where the band went and where people go in general to play music in the world, there's a shared love of music, and it's a universal form of communication, of emotional language. So the song remains the same, no matter if it's Calcutta or Honolulu, Starbright, whatever. And the lyrics reflect that. But what I find interesting is the song itself. Jimmy Page's guitar playing references a lot of these international influences, very, very wide influences, the range of blues and rockabilly and Eastern music, like Middle Eastern, and Indian sitar, raga music. You hear all those elements in this song. There's all these different parts. I guess I could, scat through them and give examples, like, you've got the finger picking kind of styles that were so influential to him, with a lot of the open chord arpeggios and finger picking. And then you have the drone, which is very much like Indian raga music. Then you have like the full-on hard rock parts, like down, 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 down. You've got this those melodies sound a little bit Eastern almost, and then you've got the that stuff sounds almost like Scotty Moore or rockabilly, Elvis type stuff. So anyway, I'm digressing a bit, but I think that's important to understand about the song. And throughout all of that, you've got this incredible groove happening with John Paul Jones and Bonzo's rhythm section work. And let's take a look at that now. So the song begins with a 4-bar intro, and when I was younger, I just learned it by ear. I didn't really understand how the intro worked in terms of where the bars, how it works within the bar, the time signature. So basically the guitar starts on beat 1, and those hits are on beat 4. See, I used to think the hits were like on beat 1, and then there was a dropped beat somewhere. But basically this is the introduction. So I'll count it off and then sort of lightly play it so you can hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. Okay, so all of those beats except the last one, all of those hits are on beat 4. Then they get into this groove, and I believe Bonzo is playing, it sounds like he's playing just quarter notes, but I think it's more likely he was playing eighth notes, but he's not accenting the upbeats. It's this kind of thing. So if you open up the hi-hat cymbal, you lose a lot of the clarity of that second note. So in the context of the beat, it sounds more like quarter notes. Okay, so one thing about this beat that is important to look at closely and understand is, like all of Bonzo's beats, it's not just a straight, simple rock beat. There's a lot of character to it. There's a lot of ghosting, there's a lot of flavor. I always use that word grease because that's what gives the flavor, right? You know, spice and grease. It gets it, so it's tasty. And the way Bonzo makes it tasty is the way all the great drummers make it tasty, is through ghosting, dynamics, and swing, and or feel, whatever you want to call it. So he's not simply playing. That's a perfectly valid beat, but can you imagine what The Song Remains the Same would sound like with another drummer just playing? You know, it's fine, but that's about it. It's just fine. It's not great. And so what makes it great is all of that flavor, all the ghosting. If I slow this beat down, and this is really good to do actually, I just want to say this, it's important to really understand these beats, to look at them closely and play them at a slow tempo so you really understand how everything fits together. Then you bring the tempo up to speed. But it's always good to practice this stuff slow, and what you'll discover is that it's actually a really cool beat in a different tempo. So check this out. So here's the beat slowed down. That sounds a lot to me like something you'd hear on a Dr. John record or on an average white band record, you know, Steve Ferrone or James Brown. If you tighten up the hi-hat, you get this. Now, I'm not really exaggerating anything to make it, you know, sound more funky. That's how Bonzo played. He played with a lot of funk in his playing, and it, again, it can't be emphasized enough how important that is to the groove of their music. It's really essential. That's the flavoring. That's the spice. That's the grease again that makes it taste so good. You know. So when you bring that up to speed, you've got this. got this. Now we've got this part. Okay, just one quick thing about that. Since we don't see Bonzo play that fill, we don't know how he really was sticking it. There's a lot of space in that fill. It's a really cool fill because it really exemplifies his style of leaving space and playing a musical fill, not just going completely nuts, although he did go pretty nuts when he played that fill live. But that's subject for another time. So whether you lead with the left hand, or you could lead with the left hand and continue leading. A lot of options. Do that. And then that little rough that he plays, I often play it 2 rights, a left, and a right, like this. I don't know for sure if he did that. He might have just done simply left, right, left, right. You know? So that's... Or... And there too, there's ghosting there. Great groove, just absolutely killer feel. The song compositionally is just magnificent with all the layers of guitars, 12-string guitar. I mean, it's just such an awesome, definitive Zepp song, and of course they liked using it as an opener because of that. It is a perfect introduction to the Rain song, and it's a perfect opener. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I should address. So in the part after one of the guitar solos, you've got that breakdown where Bonzo plays that rhythm along with the whole band in unison, and then he plays this big fill. So it's this part here. Well, let's take a quick look at that. So that is all single strokes, but with accenting, again, with character. So there's a lot of dynamics and accents. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Left hand is playing those accents to give it that syncopated feel, but it is all 16th notes. So once again, slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's that beat again. That's the song remains the same. Let's move on now to the Rain song. Okay, so we immediately go into the Rain song on the album. And Rain song was written by Jimmy as a sort of, well, the story is, it was a sort of nod to George Harrison, who made a comment that Zeppelin didn't do any ballads. They didn't write any ballads. So Jimmy said, I'll show him. And he wrote Rain Song, which is one of the most beautiful songs I think ever written. Especially in Zeppelin's catalog, I think it's probably among their top 2 or 3 beautiful compositions, along with All My Love and 10 Years Gone. To me, those are up there as some of their most gorgeous tunes. The songwriting is just amazing. So Bonzo chose to play brushes on this track entirely in the studio. Later on, of course, he would pick up sticks and he would use mallets for the quieter passages, but in the studio version he's playing brushes exclusively. And a lot of people, myself included, when I was younger, thought that he was picking up sticks in the coldness of my winter part. But he doesn't. He stays with the brushes. He's just hitting hard. So let's just take a look at what he plays on this. The rhythm is a little tricky in this song because, again, it's displaced. So you've got this figure, da da da, bo ba do ba do ba do ba da da. The way that lays on the beat is like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba ba do 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 ba do ba do. That's on the and of 4, that hit right there. So you can't think of that as a downbeat, otherwise you'll be off. It'll be hard to know your place in the meter of the song. So when Bonzo enters, he enters playing this. Okay, so I don't know exactly what he's doing because it's kind of hard to hear every brush stroke, but that's basically what he's doing. He's playing a groove that's like a 16th note, very dynamic. There's a lot of shading with it, like basic underlying feel of it is this. So that's pretty much the basic feel and style of Bonzo's drumming on the Rain song. That wasn't note for note perfect, but there's, you know, some little rough type curly cues in there to make stuff sound good, like. And like I said, live he would play mallets for all of those parts and then pick up sticks. So that's Rain Song, one of the most beautiful songs in Zeppelin's catalog, and a very interesting and different bit of drumming from John Bonham on that song. That was recorded at Stargrove's in May of '72, along with The Song Remains the Same, of course. So let's move on to the next song. Okay, so now we have Over the Hills and Far Away is next. And this tune was recorded, I think it was in April, a little earlier than the stuff at Stargrove's. It was recorded in April of '72 at Olympic Studios. So the sound is different. You know, the sound of the drums on Song Remains the Same. I'm drawing a blank here. What else was recorded at Stargrove's? Oh, Jamaica. You know, the drums sound bigger to me, recorded there, than the stuff that's recorded at Olympic, like the Crunge and Over the Hills and Far Away. And Over the Hills and Far Away, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this tune because I did a demo talking about it quite a bit earlier, a couple years ago maybe, and I can put a little card up here in the corner to that video if you're interested in seeing it. But I talked a lot also about the ghosting because, again, this song is distinctive because of all that flavor that Bonzo puts in the beat. The beat itself is not that unusual except for the little accent that he places with the hi-hat. And that was, I didn't realize this until the deluxe edition came out with the rough mix. And in the rough mix you can hear that little accent was an overdub. The hi-hat was actually overdubbed on that part. In the original track he's not playing the hi-hat splash there. So kind of an interesting choice to make, and of course it's so famously associated with the song. That's probably the most distinctive thing about the drum beat of the song. So basically when he comes in, this is the beat that he plays. If you simplify it, it would sound like this. But there's a lot of ghosting happening, so you have kind of like a 16th note feel between the hi-hat and the snare when there aren't snare drum accents or when there aren't backbeats like this. But of course there's accents. And of course when they would play this live, it became a showcase for Bonzo's drumming, his fills in between all of this funky drumming happening. I think, yeah, on How the West Was Won, isn't he up here? But usually he's... a lot of funky power. So it's like funk on steroids. You know, it's not, you know. And that's cool and it's tasty, but Bonzo brought this huge sound and power, bricklayers, you know, forearms to everything that he was playing. But the studio version is a lot more tame and he sticks with the beat. And that's basically the main drum bits for Over the Hills and Far Away. You've got the ending, you know. So the crunge is next, and I love this tune. I love everything about this tune. It's wrongly criticized, I think. But then again, there's no accounting for taste. I mean, I think a lot of people really objected to the fact that there was such an overt and strange sounding funk tune on the album. The thing that makes it strange, of course, is that it's not quite danceable being in 9/8. And I don't know if that was a little joke on Bonzo's part, but he came up with this beat. And with the bass line, it's sort of like, I mean, obviously it's a nod to James Brown all the way through, and especially with Plant's lyrics, but the guitar picking style, and it's totally James Brown influenced. But it's in 9/8, which is not James Brown style at all. It does have that one leg shorter than the other kind of feel to it. So I'm going to play this beat. I'm going to just sort of like do a quick breakdown of it because I don't think I ever did one. Terry did one a while ago and it's really good. I am not going to claim to know where the beat starts in terms of the bar because again, this is another one of those songs that I hear it one way, but the way that it's been transcribed and written out, the sheet music, I don't hear it starting that way, but I'm probably wrong on this one. Although I know the song and I can play it. As far as like counting it out, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, where is 1 in the beat? Is it ba-da-ba-da? Is that 1? Or is it ba, pa, da-da-da-da-da? So that first hit, this. Is that 1? I don't think so. I think the way the sheet music has it, and I don't care about the sheet music for this at all. It's a rock and roll song. We don't really need sheet music. Just use your ears, you know. But if you do have the sheet music, I think it starts at this part. So it's like, that's the 1. Right there, that first hit on the hi-hat. So there'd be 4. You're thinking of 4 as the end of the form, but it's not. It's a 9-beat phrase. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I hear it like this. I hear that as 1. I hear that as 1. I don't know why, but that's how I hear it. Da 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 da. Maybe because the bass lands on that. That's the root. Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Da 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 da. That's where I hear it. Just because there's that chromatic walk down to the 1, to the root of the chord. Anyway, this is the beat. Okay, right there. Let's take a break. So, and then a hi-hat bark, 2 left hand, 2 foot. That's actually a very tricky little thing to do in tempo. So you gotta go. There, see? Screwed it up. So that's basically all the parts to the song. So when it goes into 4/4, you've got this beat. A little bit of a double stroke there. I don't know if he does it every single time. And I feel like when I've heard him play it live, he doesn't, his foot isn't as active as it is on the studio version. Like this. So it varies up, of course. He doesn't always play the same beat, the same rhythm every time. But in the studio version, he does really pretty much stick to the pattern. It's one of those rare songs where there's not a whole lot of variation, and there's not really many fills on this song other than, you know, or Okay, next up is Dancing Days. Opens the second side, and it's another song that was recorded in April of '72 at Olympic Studios. And the first part of the song is fairly a simple beat, and he keeps the hi-hat a little more closed. He kind of goes between this pattern of a more closed hi-hat for those sections, the da-da-da-da-da, and then for the vocal verses, he's opening up the hi-hat more and the bass drum is more active. So the first beat is this. That's basically it. There's very little, if any, other bass drum notes. Hard to hear exactly, but other than the... That reminds me of another song, although I can't think of what. Again, hi-hats, eighth notes, but the splashing accents on the quarter notes. got some fills like that in there. That's basically the tune. There's a couple nice fills that he plays. Let's see if I can remember all of them. He's got some of those kind of stutter step fills in there. That kind of thing. So that's basically the song. And the ending, of course, is... That's Dancing Days, short and sweet. Okay, so my wife decided to take a vacation. So you're supposed to say Jamaica with an English accent. And I say, no, she went on her own. That's supposed to be a joke. So that's the origin of the title, right? We all know that. So it's supposed to be Jamaica, not Dire Maker. In the album it says a tribute to Rosie and the Originals, I think. It's like, you know, doo-wop. There's a lot of, actually the origins of reggae is very rooted in doo-wop music. So like, you know, the Skate-A-Lites and early Bob Marley, you know, these guys were covering doo-wop songs, and the music has that sound, you know. You can hear it in reggae, so that there's that relationship. And pardon me if I'm being too obvious, but I don't know if a lot of people connect these dots. You know, Robert Plant and Jimmy, John Paul, the whole band, they had very eclectic influences. They listened to a lot of music, and especially Robert, you know, he was like almost like a historian of blues music and R&B music, soul music, rock and roll, early rock and roll. So this is clearly a nod to that. You know, that influence. There's something up with the drum sound on this. It's either slowed down, so the drums sound a lot fatter and thicker, or Bonzo really tuned down his drums, or used something different, because the toms sound much lower and looser, lower pitched than any other recording that I've heard of his drums. So the song begins with this big intro. So it starts on an anticipation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba da ba da ba ba da ba bo 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 boom. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I usually play that with the double right hand rough and a left stroke and then into the crash like this. So that's, and there's actually a little left hand note before the double right hand, so like this. So that's, but the first strokes are much softer. Anyway, he does that a lot in Kashmir too. That kind of thing. So the first, see if I can remember these fills. The first fill is. Okay, that's a pretty simple one. What he's playing isn't a reggae beat. He's not going. That's my poor imitation of a reggae beat, but that's basically a reggae beat. But the song has a classic chord progression of a lot of doo-wop, Jamaican doo-wop, and early ska, rock steady kind of music. And so here comes Bonzo with almost something antithetical. I mean, it really is. The beat that he's playing is antithetical to. He's going. Let's see, and then some of the other fills. You don't have to. For example, when he plays that fill, when he goes, the toms don't sound like this. It almost sounds like, but even lower, there's some kind of effect going on it, and I have no idea what. But this was Eddie Kramer and Jimmy working together at Stargroves. So there's something happening with the drums there. Let's see, I'm trying to remember some of these other fills. That's another big one. That's all six, all straight, you know, right, left, right, left. So that's how I play it, because it makes sense with the sticking. So that's the song, Jamaica. Okay, now we come to the song that got me hooked on Zeppelin, No Quarter. My dad took me to see the movie in fall of 1977, and I had just turned 11 years old, and I was listening to bands like Kiss, you know, and AM radio. And I wasn't really hip to Led Zeppelin other than hearing some things on the radio. But when my dad took me to see The Song Remains the Same, I was mesmerized immediately, really, from the opening rhythm of rock and roll and the colors and the spinning lights and everything. I mean, I just was blown away. But what really, like, hooked me was No Quarter. There was just something about the sound of the song. And so when I got home that night, I went looking for the album because I knew that my dad had a couple Zeppelin albums and I was hoping to find that song. And I found it, of course, and played it over and over and over that night. I remember it was kind of late at night too, and I just kept playing that song over and over. It's just something haunting, obviously, about the song, the minor key and the story that it tells, kind of a dark, foreboding story. And the sound of the drums on this session is different than the sound pretty much on the rest of the album. So you look at when and where it was recorded. It was recorded in December of '71. It was one of the first songs recorded for the album, as far as I know. And it was recorded at Island Studios, which is where they did a lot of the fourth album. And Andy Johns was actually the engineer for this track. So there's a lot of outtakes for the track. I'll just make sure this camera... I forgot to turn the camera on for one of the songs, I think for Dancing Days. So anyway, yeah, the outtakes are amazing. If you're not familiar with them, I'll post a card with a link to them. They are such a great insight into Bonzo's drumming and his development of a song in the studio. I'm not going to get too far into detail. I might do a separate tutorial on No Quarter at some point, but I did do a cover version of the studio version as well as a few different live versions. He tended to play the song differently live. It evolved quite a bit. It really evolved in terms of every aspect of it, actually. But the drumming is a bit different as it went on over the years. He approached things differently. But in the original version, there's a simplicity and kind of a sparseness of sound, but it's just so beautifully played. It's the height of what I consider Bonzo's musicality as a drummer. Playing perfectly for the song. It's very dynamic. He plays the dynamics of the song. He's not slaughtering it. He's a very dynamic drummer, and you can really hear it on this song. It's very well demonstrated. So, what do I mean by that? Well, for example, when he comes in, the first entrance, he's playing on the ride cymbal, and there's this really nice ghosting sort of in between, and it's a sparse beat. Okay, so that to me is a really beautiful beat. I just love the way he subdivides the beat and adds all of this character and flavor with all the ghosting. So let's take a look at it. So he's playing quite a bit of ghosting, and at one point in the beat you may notice, I'll just demonstrate it slowly, but he plays a kind of an intricate interaction between the left hand and the bass drum. So you've got an interaction here between the left hand and the bass drum. Another thing he does on the second part that I really like is he plays a fill that goes over the bar line. So what I mean by that is he doesn't end the fill and come out crashing on beat 1 or on the end of 4. He actually plays over beat 1 and into the next bar. So, see that? That's the over the bar fill. Did you catch that? It's this one. He goes past the bar line and then the crash. And he does this quite a bit toward the end of the song because it matches with the riff that goes do da 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 do da dee da do da dee da do da 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 do da dee da da. That figure right there. But we'll get to that. But so this figure is a simple figure. I mean, it's a simple fill. That's where you would expect it to end. But he doesn't crash there. He goes. He crashes on the and of one. If you're thinking of the bar length as 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, let's take a look at what he plays in the guitar solo now. That's essentially the groove. It's a 16th note groove on the hi-hat. And it's very subtle, you know. Again, Bonzo, with this reputation, the negative, comments that you hear about him being a pounder and a beast and all of that, he's not playing that way at all. He's playing very sensitively, dynamically to the corresponding demand of the music. The song has this moody vibe and he's playing it perfectly. He's playing the beat with a lot of contour and shape, a lot of personality. And I also just want to say that that cymbal really has the sound. It's an old giant beat, a white label giant beat. These are all giant beats. This one's a black label, this one's a white label. And the hats are 602 sound edge. But if there's ever a more, I don't know of any more clear example, let me put it that way, of the sound of a vintage giant beat than the crashes on No Quarter. When he does those crashes and you hear that shimmering sustain, it's like a glassy kind of decay. That's a 100% giant beat. Beautiful cymbals. And so let's take a look at the end of the song and the outro. Okay, and on it fades out. So let's look at a couple of those fills. Again, the over the bar line thing, which he often did when they played this live. He just follows that phrase across the bar and makes those hits. The first one of these fills, though, is one of my favorites, and if you listen to the outtakes from the recording when they were working through the song, he plays a lot of these broken triplet type fills that are just so cool, and you can hear him working through those. I'll post a link to the outtakes from the session, but there's a lot of those kind of fills like this kind of thing. So the one that he plays on the actual, that's on the actual recording is this. Let's see. Let's see. Then there's another over the bar fill where he plays. Then there's another big one where he goes. And then there's the Hercha fill. Okay, so we come to the final tune on the album, which is The Ocean. The Ocean was composed as a tribute to the multitude of fans all over the world that Zeppelin had built up by this point. So the lyrics reflect that appreciation for their audience. The song has a bit of an odd feeling in the time signature because there's an odd bar in there, which again gives it that kind of Eileen's dance sort of, one leg shorter than the other kind of feeling, like the crunge. There's a couple ways to think of the beat. I mean, if you have it memorized, you don't really have to think about how it really relates to the time signature. But if it helps you to think about the time signature, it's basically, it's basically like one long bar of 4/4. So if you thought of it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's a bar of 7/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then it repeats. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another way to think of it is just all in eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 2 bars of 4/8 and 1 bar of 7/8. So the way the beat goes is something like this, and there's quite a bit of ghosting in it as well. may notice that I tightened up my snare a bit, and that's because the sound of his drums is different on this track as well. And it was recorded at Olympic Studios, I believe in April sessions as well of '72, but it just sounds very different to me. Now on this track I almost wonder if it was sped up because the snare drum sounds so high pitched and Robert's voice sounds unnaturally high. So there could have been some of that studio trickery going on, or he just had either a different snare that he wanted to play, or he just wanted to tighten up. But it's definitely tighter than it is on other songs like Over the Hills and Far Away, let's say, or the Crunge, where it sounds quite a bit looser. So the ghosting is very important. The way he does it is very subtle in this part here. It's got that Over the Hills and Far Away kind of ghosting. And of course he does those little bass drum doubles before some of the breaks, not all of them. And then we get to the end, which has the swing section. And he doesn't play that on the ride like he always did live. He plays it with an open splashing hi-hat and quarter notes. So that's... So that's the first one. I'm going to try to go through these fills as close as possible, just so you get an idea of what he was playing. But it's a little hard to hear them real clearly. So the next one kind of is like this. Okay, so that fill is... And then he plays... So that's... Slow it down even more. And then that last one, which is, I think, this. Something like that. I really think that this album showcased Bonzo's maturity as a drummer at that time. I feel like he really matured quickly as a musician from the beginning of the band in 1968 and through '71 with the fourth album. But by '72, when this was recorded, I feel like he really had the full grasp of all of his powers, pretty much. Of course, there were things that he was doing later that were inventive, and he was continuing to explore new ideas and technique and style. But Houses of the Holy has all of these elements that you hear later, like the different grooves, the variety of grooves, the sound. Just every song, the way he complements each song with the beats that he came up with is just brilliant, in my opinion. And there were a lot of other songs that were recorded during the sessions for Houses of the Holy that didn't make it on the album. Of course, the title track didn't make it on the album, and that came out on Physical Graffiti along with Black Country Woman, which was recorded at Stargroves, and The Rover was recorded for Houses of the Holy. Let's see, Walter's Walk was another one that didn't ever get released until Coda. That was recorded at Stargroves as well. So a lot of really great material. The band were just, I think, at a creative peak at this time. So I really enjoyed making this video. I'm enjoying doing all these videos. I hope that you all are enjoying them and finding them of value as well. I'm looking forward to Physical Graffiti, which I will probably divide up into 2 separate videos just because it'll be long if I do it all at once. And I need to make sure I always check the camera angle because, as you can see, I'm filming this at a different time. It's a different day. I realized after I shot all the segments of the songs, when I looked back at everything, that I had the angle just a little too low and it cut off the top of my head. So, oh well, that's the breaks. I don't have a director here or a producer, so I need to be extra careful and double check. So thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do if you enjoy what I'm doing. And also, if you'd like to contribute at all to my channel, I have a PayPal account where I'm accepting donations. The link is in the description to the video. And for all of those who have donated, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your generosity. It's much appreciated. So take care, and I'll see you real soon. Peace.